First thing that's most important for anybody is you gotta know who you are. I know what really ticks me off. I know what's gonna make me become or display things that I really gonna regret later. My name is Damon Foreman. Where am I from? That's a good question. My parents were both military. They met in basic training. So my whole childhood, I grew up moving around. I primarily grew up overseas in Europe. But I spent most of my time in the US in San Diego, California. And what do? I am a special agent, criminal investigator with Homeland Security Investigations. So I do investigations of a criminal nature and dealing with the international aspects of things coming in and leaving the United States. My parents were both in the US Air Force. So we were stationed at an Air Force base called Incirlik in Adana, Turkey, which is on the Mediterranean Sea. So it was a beautiful location, but the city was extremely poor. I moved there when I was 13, and I was there until I was almost 18. So my teenage years were in the Republic of Turkey, which is a very interesting place to be a teenager, especially when I was there. There's always things happening in our town. In Turkey, there was a lot of shootings and bombings and things. And so as a teenager, dealing with that kind of environment and being an American in a country that's primarily Islamic, having friends who were also military but also Turkish. My school that I went to, the high school I went to, was half Turkish, half American. Didn't have the opportunity to experience some of the things that most US American kids at that age experience. Had to wait till I came back to the US before I was driving a car. We didn't have the opportunity to go to the malls and shop and, hang out like American teenage kids did. I was on a base dodging bullets and things out in the community. So it's a little different, but I don't regret it at all. I'm glad I was there. I think those experiences helped make me who I became today. I was a little guy. I was so small compared to my classmates growing up. And it's funny, I look back at it now because I'm 41 now, so I'm very sure of who I am and confident in myself. But I wasn't always that way. I don't think I hit puberty probably until I was maybe 22. Didn't grow any facial hair. All my friends were grown men with deep voices. I was the little boy of the group, and everyone always thought I was younger than everyone else that I hung out with. Even when I was older, I read a lot as a child. And so by the time I was hitting school, my habits of reading and understanding and comprehending and learning from things that I read was pretty high. So I was a nerdy little student who always got good grades. I was a small guy, really frail. I wore these huge glasses. My teeth were really crooked. I was just not popular with the girls. I was an outcast. I was not something that was accepted. And because of that, I had a smart mouth. And I would talk to people. If somebody put me down or said something to me, I was really witty, and I would come back with them enough to embarrass them that this little nerdy runt was talking crap to me, and people are laughing, and he's embarrassing me. So I got into fights all the time. And I never won those fights until I realized that, look, I'm going to say something that makes me feel better, to say something that's going to put me into a situation where I might fight. But I'm going to walk out of there with my dignity, and I'm going to feel good about myself. Even if I'm lumped up and I'm bloody, and that's okay. I will go home that way. My mom and dad will look at me and just shake their heads. And they knew that there's nothing that they can tell me that was going to prevent me from being in that situation again. It's just an interesting situation being a military brat on a base where you're forced to kind of live and you're forced to get along with people. Is a good dichotomy to how life is in general. You get put in these situations where you're forced to live with people, and there's going to be conflict. And how do you resolve that conflict? Those times kind of defined who I am, how I look at life. And our times in our youth, for everybody, we all do that. We take things that we've learned and our life experiences, and it molds who you are, and it changes how you see the world. I don't think anything in my life has ever been just given to me. I've always been underestimated. And now I don't look at that as a challenge. I look at that as the norm for me, and I know how to overcome that now. So when I see the fact that I'm being underestimated into something, I don't run from it anymore. Now I want to approach it because I've seen success from being underestimated, and it's not anything that scares me anymore. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, why am I the way that I am, whether good, bad, and ugly? And one thing that I really think about a lot is while I was in Turkey, I got an opportunity to see the world differently. There were people there who were extremely wealthy, and there were people there who were extremely poor. And they lived together side by side in harmony with no judgment. I remember one time I was off the base hanging out with my friend Jerome, and we wanted to go to a restaurant that was about a mile away. And so they have the streets in Turkey are crazy. They're even worse than the streets here in Port of Spain with the traffic. There's trolleys, and there's horses and donkeys and cars and motorcycles, all just trying to go whichever direction they want on one street. So it's pretty chaotic. But they have these trolleys that you can just run and jump on. And on the trolley was this man he looked very wealthy. It's nice suit, nice tie. He was very clean shaven, looked very respectable. And this other man jumps onto the trolley, sits right next to him, and you can tell he was likely homeless, very dirty, no clothes. His clothes were ragged. He was very unkempt. His teeth were missing and didn't look very wealthy or well-to-do. And he smiled at the man who was very wealthy, and the wealthy man smiled back at him. They sat right next to each other. They exchanged words. They smiled at each other. They talked for a little bit. The dirty man was rubbing up. I mean, the trolleys are very congested, and he's rubbing up against the clean man, and there was no difference. They looked at each other as brothers regardless. And I remember sitting there watching that and thinking that was something that was beautiful. And the Turks, they looked at me as a brother before they looked at me as anything else. And that's just the way the culture was there. And I think I took a lot of that with me when I came back to the U.S. and look at all the social issues that are going on with race and classes, and how angry a country like the U.S., where everything's available and it's the most prominent and most wealthy country in the world, and they deal with these issues that a country was growing up where it was very poor, and they didn't have those kind of social issues. And I think that's allowed me an opportunity to see things differently, to analyze situations differently, to be able to put myself in situations outside of what I know as comfortable for me. And I'm very grateful for my time there. I think that's really what's molded me into being able to be more analytical, less judgmental, more accepting. And I listen and watch a lot more because of that. Because I was overseas and going to the school that I went to, I was able to, when I came back to the U.S., I was still supposed to be a senior in high school, but I had already accomplished all the requirements for graduation. But I wanted to play sports. I wanted to play American football. I wanted to run track. When I came back to the U.S., I was anxious to see how fast I was and challenge myself. And so I ran track, and I played American football just for 1 year. And I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship for university and was able to run track and play there. Our football team had a minimum grade point average that you had to maintain, which was a 3-point. And me being, I don't know, the smart guy that I thought I was, I chose one of the hardest disciplines to study there. I was a rhetoric major, and rhetoric is the art of persuasion. It's persuasive speech, and it's a pre-law major. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. In order to graduate and get a degree there, you were required to do 2 things specific to that major as a rhetoric major. One, you had to do an oral board where you sit in front of all of your professors in that field, and they ask you questions about your field, and you have to answer them correctly. The second thing is you have to write a thesis, and it has to be specific to the discipline, and it has to be compelling enough to be accepted by the staff. Actually, there's a third thing, and the third thing is a comprehensive exam you had to take. So I did those things. My comprehensive exam, because my grades were average and not exceptional, my comprehensive exam displayed that I understood the discipline well, and too well for my professors to believe that I actually did it legitimately. And they accused me of cheating. They said that I cheated on the exam and that I was not going to graduate. And I got very emotional about that because I studied my ass off for that. And I was very prepared for it. And I did not cheat. And I think me being who I was from my upbringing, the things that bother me the most in life are when someone says that I did something that I didn't do. Those are like the things that get underneath my skin the most, and those are my biggest challenges in life. And so when I was told that I cheated on this exam by my professor privately in her office, I lost it. And I stood up and I threw the stuff off of her desk. I yelled at her. I threatened her, scared her, and I stormed out of the room. I went and talked to the president of the university, and he said, well, I'm going to solve this. We're going to give you another test. It's a 5-hour test. It's 5 questions. You have to respond to the questions in a paragraph or a essay form. So every question takes, it's a 10-page paper, basically. So they sat there and watched me take this test again. And brand new questions, everything. And they asked me all these questions. At the end of my oral boards, one of the professors stood up and said, look, Damon, I can't believe this is the first time I've ever said this to a student. I don't look at you anymore as a student. I look at you as a peer in this profession. You understand this field very well, and I'm honored to have you as a student. I've been honored, and I'm more honored now to see you as a peer. And I'm sitting there holding back tears because I was still angry that, they assumed so little of me, and they accused me of something that I would never do. And all the professors stood up and they clapped. So I passed and I graduated. But I fought for that. I felt like I had to fight more than anyone else did. My university, there was 5 black people in my school. So I assumed that they were assuming things of me because I was an athlete, I was in a fraternity, I was very social, popular, and I was black. So I was angry at the fact that I was thinking that they were looking at me as a stereotype and that I didn't have the capability of being intelligent and being able to understand one of the hardest profession or studies at that university. So I was a little angry, but I knew I had to fight for that. But that fight helped me in my career. There's situations in my career where I know I had to work harder and I had to fight more than somebody else did. And instead of knowing that I overcame that situation as a college student and athlete, allowed me to look at the situation again, saying, hey, this is another fight that I'm going to get through. I'm going to win. And I didn't shy away from it. I didn't get angry. I didn't flip the desk up again. I was more strategic about it. And that calm and that understanding of how to handle those situations is continually moving me forward in my life. I think if people were able to understand that we all are different, and there's beauty in that, and when people are discriminating against you, your reaction to that discrimination is just as important, if not more, than the factors that are causing that person to discriminate against you. And it's an equal responsibility to deal with that discrimination. I've learned from my mistakes. I know that my emotions and me getting angry at things in the past in my youth, those probably weren't my actions probably weren't the best way to handle that situation. My reaction made it worse. It reinforced that person's discrimination against me. If we look at people as being people, and someone's always gonna find something that aren't gonna like, I do it. I know I have my biases and my prejudices against people, and I acknowledge that. But I don't let those things change how I'm gonna interact with that person. And I think that's where you start. So discrimination is something that's just human nature, it's people. And we have to know how to deal with that. First thing that's most important for anybody is you got to know who you are. I know what my natural reactions are to things. I know what really ticks me off. I know what's going to make me become or display things that I really going to regret later. So if you don't know those things first going into a situation, when you're presented with them, you're not going to know, all right, I'm mad and I know why I'm mad. So I need to look and decide not doing what I know my natural reaction to do next is, which is going to be flip this table over or punch somebody in the face or yell or say something that is not going to make the situation better. So you got to know yourself first. It took me a while to realize the things that really ticked me off because I went from 0 to 100 really quick. And once I realized, wow, that really got me riled up and I shouldn't have done what I just did. Because in order for someone to make you feel like you're less of a person, you're already putting them you're elevating them in your brain and in your mind that they have the power or the ability to see you as lesser. So you're giving them that power. For myself, my hacks were to close my eyes and breathe and laugh and smile and in my mind, I just belittle people in my mind. That was my little thing. Like I would say things in my head that I wouldn't say through my mouth, but I got it out of my system. It was like a bit of a relief. I wanted to be an actor. I thought I was going to be the next Wesley Snipes or the next Denzel Washington. I love movies. I love that. And I liked action movies. An action movie that can make you laugh. Like, my parents think that I'm the funniest person on the planet. I know I've been really serious on this interview right now, but they'll call me and my mom's like, I just need a good laugh. I know that if I call you, I'm going to laugh a little bit. So I wanted to be that kind of like comic action hero on TV. And so when I went to college, I was like, oh, my first major, I was going to be a video producer. I was like, if I get into production side, I can understand everything. Everything's strategic for me. So if I understood the production, then I can get into, acting is going to be something you naturally can do. You practice and train and get better, but I wasn't worried about that. I wanted to learn how the business worked. I wanted to learn how films were made first. And so my freshman year, I was in Salem, Oregon, and I drove up to Portland twice a week to do an internship at the local CCTV station there, just the public access television. And the producers there were outstandingly talented. They were talking to me, oh, I worked on this movie and this project. I did this and I did that. And I was amazed by their knowledge and understanding of their profession. And then I thought about it. I'm like, you've done all these things and you're working here at the CCTV station. And I didn't like the thought that you could blow up and bloom and then have to go back to doing something more modest. For me at that time, I was like, no, I don't want to be in something that can not continue to grow and continue to get bigger and better. And then I really thought about it, and I said, if I was to play an actor or get into this industry, I would want to be an action star, a movie person, be a cop, or be something where it's active in a movie. The role would be that way. And I realized it would be so much more fun to do it in real life. So I decided to transition into actually still using my law background, into something that I really wanted to do, was to actually be the real cop and the real guy kicking down the doors and rescuing people and running down the streets and stuff. So I decided to move my career into law enforcement. I noticed things that most people won't even think to look for. And I think that's a superpower of mine because I feel prepared in almost any situation because of that. I'm also not afraid of anything really. There are things that I don't like. I really don't like spiders. I'm not scared of them. There's nothing that causes me fear. Like that emotion of fear is something that I don't think exists for me. I'm not afraid of putting myself in situations that most people think would be risky. People who have phobias, that's been a challenge of mine too, is to actually show understanding and compassion to people who are afraid of things that to me seem really irrational. So I have to work on that sometimes and understand that we're all different. And just because I don't understand why you're terrified of something, to do something or take a risk, doesn't mean that you're wrong and feeling that way. We're just different. Intolerance, people who show low compassion We're all on this earth together. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all family to an extent. I mean, we're all related somehow. We're all come from the same thing. We're all created the same way. We're all made of the same things. And when I see people intentionally treat other people with the way that they don't want to be treated, the way that they like they're lesser than them, it really, I feel a change inside of me when I see that or when I experience it. And I think it's kind of led me to do the kind of career that I do now, investigating people who do those things to other people, to victimize people. I have no tolerance for it. A lot of the things I would tell them that come to my mind, I probably shouldn't tell them because those things actually kind of made him better in the long run. At that age, I was trying to find my toughness in who I was and my self-awareness, the security of who I am in my mind through other people who were bad people to hang out with. I had some bad friends. They were not ever my friend. I was more their friend than they were mine. And I idolized them in a way that I probably shouldn't have because they represented and displayed the things that I was trying to find in my own personality, in my own life. And they were bad examples because they were extreme in those things. They were extremely aggressive. They fought all the time. They always got in trouble. They talked back. They did things that I never did. But what I saw in their actions and their activities made me think that I wanted that in my life. Maybe not to their extreme, even though I thought I did at the time, wanted to be just like them. And I hung around them, and we got into trouble that we shouldn't have gotten into. Luckily, and like I've been blessed, and God's kept His hedge of protection around me. I've never done anything to get myself into any serious trouble, but that was only because of God. I mean, I was in situations in my life that I shouldn't have gotten out of so easily. So I would tell that 15-year-old that he doesn't need to look at those people for the things that he's missing in his life, that he's eventually going to get himself, and he's going to grow into a person that he's going to look in the mirror and be okay with seeing.